Good morning. Good morning, everyone, both in the conference hall of the Riga City Council and also for our online participants. Today we celebrate your interest in topics regarding both dementia and city plannings for making cities friendly and inviting for everyone. We are celebrating curiosity. We are celebrating our great speakers who have been willing, and they are here in the conference hall, and I'm very grateful to you, to each of you. I'm very grateful to each organization and expert in the Nordic and Baltic countries who has been very active with advising to me other experts. So we are celebrating this conference, and I'm Daina Mežecka from the Nordic Council of Ministers office in Latvia. I'm working with social and health and welfare issues and gender equality, and my main task is to connect Nordic and Baltic actors in these fields.
Hello everyone, and also greetings to International Seniors Day, actually in the 1st of October today. My name is Rūdis Rubenis. I'm an architect. I've recently been working in Riga Municipality, city's architect's office, and coordinating new European Bauhaus project on social housing and citizen engagement as well. But actually more, some 8 years, I've been working as a practicing architect. So working on projects in Riga and Latvia. So thanks to my background, I guess I'm here today because of my local context and maybe also a practical perspective. So we will be yes, trying to connect all the dots in this very exciting subject today. And talking about practical perspective, a few technical things for those of you who are first day today here. On the tables you will find headphones where you can hear translation from English to Latvian, and also vice versa. So if someone is speaking and you don't understand him, there's a good chance of grabbing the headphones, and with the buttons you can switch through languages, Latvian, English at some points, and also adjust the volume. Tātad uz galdiem, labrīt visiem, ir austiņas, kurās arī ir dzirdams tulkojums uz angļu valodu, ja tas ir nepieciešams. About question and answer sessions, there will be moments when we will ask you to participate, so watch carefully and think what you would like to ask to the speakers. And we will give you a chance to raise hands and then just push the button beneath the microphone and yes, raise your questions. For questions, there is also a great option to send them in directly via Slido. You can see the QR codes, you can scan them and join the app, or go to slido.com and type in the code for participating. And this is also for our for the many online viewers we have. So Slido is also your chance to give the questions to the speakers. And last but not the least, the toilets are across the hallway behind the fountain. Yes.
So, and before I pay some words to the aim of the conference, I'm curious about you in the conference hall who are from local municipalities. Please raise the hand. Thank you. And who are more connected with social work and social services? Yeah. Who are involved in city planning? architecture, landscape architecture. Yeah. Universities, representatives, researchers. Thank you. A nice diversity in the conference hall, and I know that also our online participants come from very different institutions in Latvia, in Lithuania, Estonia, and in the Nordic countries. And the aim of this conference is exactly to bring together different professionals and researchers and social service providers and city planners, architects, landscape architects, everybody who is involved in planning or making our cities to a more inviting and including living space. And our aim with this conference in particular is to look for themes, more concrete topics even, of mutual interest for cooperation for Nordic and Baltic actors. This is our main mission as the Nordic Council of Ministers office in Latvia.
All right. Yesterday also was a great day. Here we had great presenters, speakers talking about dementia and focusing a lot on social workers, relatives and policymakers' perspective. Yet actually the importance of built environment factors in preventing health issues and making people feel more better was stressed a lot also yesterday. So I'm quite excited to be here today. And yes, while we are all here today talking about also architecture and creating age-friendly cities, and when we are all here still young and active in this room, I think it's a great chance for us to see and think how we can create better cities to keep us all healthy and support us when we will need it. So this is also about active participation. So listen, think, and yeah, raise your questions when we will have time for that.
And when it's to the agenda of the day, so we are going to have 3 presentations. After that, there will be a first panel discussion, then a coffee break, then 2 more presentations, second panel, and summing up the day.
Okay, I guess we are then basically ready for our first speaker.
Yes, and I'm glad to invite Anna Žabicka to the stage and here. And Anna is a PhD, is working on her PhD at the University of Vienna. And as also most of our speakers, they unite in themselves both academic knowledge, researchers' curiosity, and lived experiences. And I learned to know Anna when she was telling about seniors and space, and this was a completely different approach than from that I had heard from some 30 years ago when I, as a first-time student, went and worked in a psychiatric hospital, and these attitudes towards some vulnerable groups. Oh, we have made, all our countries have made the long journey during the last decades, and we have also a journey to make also in the future to reflect on our attitudes towards different groups in our society. The floor is yours, Anna.
Yes, and a short remark, Anna will be leaving right after the presentation, so we will have a time actually for maybe, we'll see, but for 1 or 2 questions right after the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'll start with a short remark. I probably cannot teach you much about space or place or architecture or urban planning, but for the last 12 years, I've been involved in research around aging, around late life, and my amazing contributors that I've been very privileged to get to know are mostly people in late life. And today's presentation is more about the life course. So there's also been happening a shift in gerontology, or in my case, in anthropology about aging and age, that we're more focusing on the life course as such. And it stems from the fact that it's very hard to pinpoint where exactly old age starts, right? We don't know. So I'll be focusing on the changes and then on the aspects of later life, wherever that actually starts. And just to have a little introduction about the contents, I will be speaking more about people in different spaces. So that's going to be my focus, but the space matters. And I'll start about navigating the life course, and then I'll move into boredom and nothingness, and I'll explain afterwards why. And at the end, through very practical examples about private and public spaces and the boundaries and the shifting boundaries between those two in a nursing home, which has been my main focus for the last 12 years. So the first part about life course. This is her name has changed, obviously, and I met her for the first time 4 years ago, so 2020, during COVID, when I lived in a nursing home for older adults. She was 90 at the time, and she was, and she still is, one of the most remarkable people I have ever met in my life. Full of liveliness, despite that she's been deported to Siberia twice, not once. Full of dark sense of humor, through which we connected. Through many, many stories, and through her very specific view of the world. And I learned from her and from many other people how passionate she was. So meeting such passionate people, such active people, despite physical or maybe cognitive limitations that they experience in later life, raised many questions about myself, for example, how I'm moving through my life course, right? And learning what were interests of people that I met, what was important to them, also meant that I asked these questions about myself and about others. So let's do a very, very short experiment. I want you to, lean back a little bit in your chairs and try to recall yourself 10, 20, 30 years ago. Just pick an age. What were your interests at the time? What was interesting for you, right? What was important to you? What was thrilling for you? And then think about yourself at this point in your life. What has remained of those interests? If they have remained, have they slightly changed the way you access them, the way you experience your interests? Maybe you have dropped some of them, some of the hobbies, some of other things that were important a few years ago or 10 years ago. And I think this kind of thought experiment is helping us to think that, yes, we do change, and yes, the sense of self is always dynamic and shifting and evolving, but there are also a lot of constant things. And this is what I also learned working with older adults, that they had a lot of interests, some more, some less. Those who had less of them usually also had less of them when they were younger, so that didn't change much, right? But for instance, I met a woman who was a traveler when she was younger. She was climbing mountains, and obviously now she couldn't. She was 93 at the time. But she shifted her interests, and now she was reading just tons of books about travel and about different places in the world and about mountain climbing. So she shifted her interests according to her well-being, according to her health. And the place, in a way, mattered to that. Did the place contribute whether she had access to the shifted interests that she had? For others, those who were great gardeners like 10 years ago, did the place contribute that they could actually still do that if they choose to do that, right? So what I'm getting here at is the meaningfulness of activities. And the activities that we do, whether those are our hobbies or our work, or very meaningful interactions with other people or social relations that we build throughout the life. When I was 17, I would definitely say that one of my top interests were my friends, right? Now, other people, and relationships with other people are still one of my, not even interests, but it is what sustains me. It is what drives me in a lot of ways. So whether those are activities or whether those are personal relationships, and even if they change and even if they shift throughout a life course, there are always these very meaningful acts that can either sustain who we are or sustain our personhood, or actually, quite the opposite, create a sense of detachment and a sense of unbelonging. And as you'll see later when I'll talk about boredom, plays a big role in here, right? So what happens if those important things are no longer accessible to us? What happens if important relationships are no longer accessible to us because of the place where we live, right? Or because of the changed circumstances that we find ourselves in. So thoughtfully designed spaces, they can't fix all problems, for sure, but they can contribute to fixing certain things. They can facilitate certain interests. They can facilitate sense of self in the end, and that's what's important. And here we get to the boredom, which is the opposite in a way of meaningfulness. And I'll start with a quote from Zidra, who was 80-something years old when I met her at first time. And she described their nursing home like this in one of the many encounters that we had. So it's very calm here. Nothing really happens here. It's boring. There's nothing to do here. When guests came to my house, they would spend the entire afternoon. I would cook meal, bake tarts. But here, how long will they sit on the side of my bed with nothing for them or me to do? Boredom was something that a lot of people talked about. So it kind of caught my attention. What does it mean? What is boredom in these circumstances, right? It seems something way more complicated than how we usually think about boredom. And here, Zidra, who came to the nursing home in 2019, if I remember correctly, she did that on her own choice. She sold her house. She's a former teacher. And she moved into a nursing home. She has children. She has grandchildren. But she made this choice because she felt the deteriorating health. However, it doesn't mean that it was easy for her to adapt. And this is something that I do think we often disregard, that this move from their places, from their apartments, their houses, or wherever they lived before to nursing home is an existential crisis, in fact, right? It takes a lot of adaptability to actually feel welcomed and warm and at home in such places. So boredom was something that I heard a lot when people talk, that there is nothing to do. And it stood actually in sharp contrast to how employees of the nursing home described the space. They said, oh, everything happens here. Anning, you see, things happen here, right? For them, there was completely different rhythm than it was for residents who actually lived there. So because it caught my attention, I started questioning myself what this boredom actually means, right? And I've come to sort of conclusion that it is obviously a very complex phenomenon that captures a sense of loss. And the sense of loss is both physical, so changing capabilities of what our bodies can do. It's also shifting cognitive functionality, so what we cognitively can do. It's also loss of the previous lives, of previous circumstances, of previous social roles that we had, whether what was our main points that built our identities. And it was also altered perception of space and time, or spatiotemporality, meaning moving to a place, very, very specific place. That means you have to adapt who you are to that place. And it obviously affected them. So what we see here is, and they affected the space too, as we will see moving forward. But we do see that there is dialectical relationship between a space and individual, meaning that space affects person in changes and vice versa too. It is also important to distinguish. I mean, there is situational boredom that everybody here probably has experienced at some point, waiting for a delayed train, for example, with nothing to do, or waiting for that very, very specific email, to drop in so we can move forward with our work, right? And it's annoying, the situational waiting. But there is also this existential waiting that is marked by this mix of loss, of unfulfilled desires, hope, or in many cases, absence of hope, unrealized possibilities and unmet aspirations. And I do think it is important to acknowledge that this existential boredom is not just an individual feeling, right? It is actually a result of broader political, socioeconomic, cultural implications that people are experiencing. Imagine a migrant being stuck in a halfway house, waiting for the documents to be processed. It's not situational boredom. It is existential boredom that hits very, very close to questioning of who we are, our personhood, right? It goes back to our life course and the sense of self. It hits very close often to sense of isolation and a sense of loneliness. So a lot of times this existential boredom, similar to situational boredom, includes waiting. But the problem is sometimes we don't know what we're waiting for and whether there's actually something to wait for, right? So it can create this feeling of being stuck or stuckness that reflects in a way a lack of agency. And this is what I saw in my research when older adults were talking about boredom. Boredom was the sense of stuckness in specific time, stuckness in a specific place that kind of deprived who they were, their social statuses, their previous lives, their access to freedom in a way, right? So going back to Deirdre's story, who said that, what should I do here? Like, I have this one small room, and she was lucky to live in a single room. There's a bed, there's a bedside table, there's one small chair, and that's about it. And imagine she came from like a solid house with a garden, and like every Saturday, her children and grandchildren would come over, and there would be just, spills of joy and children running around. So right now, the place, and obviously also the circumstances, deprived her sense of self in a way, right? She was no longer a homeowner. She was no longer a hostess, a very important part of who she was. Now she was, what was she? A person living in a nursing home, feeling stuck in the space that limited her options, feeling lack of agency to somehow change, and also a lack of or absence of possibility to imagine the future, which is very important in our sense of self, in our sense of personhood, to be able to imagine the future, whatever it is, but what comes next, right? So the space around her really did not offer a lot of opportunities, right? And it is important that when we think either of public or private spaces that we build for others, do these spaces facilitate familiar activities? Is she able to bake her tarts? In short, right? Because that's one of the many actions that is important to her, to who she is. She can no longer be homeowner, that's fine. But maybe she can still bake tarts and invite people over, right? Does the space provide more than one-to-one conversations? So she being a hostess, it's not just about her hobbies. It is also, those are actions that facilitate very meaningful social interactions that were no longer there, right? And then the other part is that space can or should, not always maybe, also encourage spontaneous interactions. Imagine those Saturday afternoons when she was baking those tarts and having kids and grandkids over. She was telling me, that she could never know, which grandchild with whom would, get in a fight, or who would, try to strain the cat or whatever. Something would always happen. So in between those familiar interactions, there was always the unexpected, something that no one could, know what will happen. And that kind of created liveliness in life. And she was deprived of those unexpected interactions as well, right now. So now I'll give 2 examples of how people feeling stuck in a place that deprived them of either familiarity or unexpected encounters were trying to fix those issues for themselves. And this is one of my favorite pictures from my field work. So there were Maya and Lucia, they lived together, so it was a double room. And Maya was kind of involved, when I say involved, we know what we mean, with Eduard, right? Nobody knew exactly how involved, but they had a romantic or friendly companionship, which was tremendous to watch. And here we are preparing to celebrate Eduard's birthday. And it seems like it's nothing, right? There's just, some sandwiches, there's cognac, director of the nursing home was invited, right? So there's a small, but still a celebration. And it seems like not a big deal, right? And these 3 people, they were also drinking coffee, and I joined them for a year. Every day at 1:30, they would gather, they would have coffee, some sandwiches, and they would, talk about whatever they wanted to talk about and laugh. And these seemed very, very mundane things, nothing to pay attention too close at first. But then I realized that they were altering spatiotemporal reality for them. They were making the space and the place that felt unhomey, they were making it their own. They were taking back the space, right? Creating space, whatever physical space they had, they were creating a sense of home and a space that could provide and facilitate meaningful interactions for them. They were also taking back from the institutional rhythm, right? They were the owners of their time at this moment, which is very important when you live in a space where everything else is scheduled in your life. And they had actual joy. And at first I was pondering a lot, what's the meaning behind, drinking coffee? Not much. It's just, like we gather and drink coffee. Sometimes we just want coffee. Sometimes we're falling asleep. Sometimes we also chat, just randomly chat about different things, drinking coffee. But that was the meaning. There's nothing much more. But when you're deprived of that, this becomes something that you actually pay attention to, right? So they were taking back their space. And the other part, I know that you definitely can recall a moment when you have, walking down the street and you see usually an older person looking through a window in their apartments, just watching things, what's happening on the street. So in 2021, there was this project for people with mental disabilities. So they started building these 8 apartments. And I noticed that suddenly, especially men, by the way, suddenly they were standing, older adults were standing in a nursing home just watching through the window, or just, going outside and taking the Superman pause, right? And being experts on things that were happening there. And they were commenting all the time. I don't think they're doing it right. I don't think it's supposed to, they're working very, very slowly. I should complain to somebody about it, right? So they were experts suddenly, and they were just spending a lot of time watching things over and telling the director of nursing home that, in their opinion, something's off there, right? And again, it seems like not a big deal, but this was something, the unexpected. And living in a space, and especially, so this is a rural nursing home where, there's 1 bus per day that goes to Riga. Closest shop is, like, grocery store is 11 kilometers. There's not a lot of options there, right? You feel stuck. So building project, construction project, yeah, that's fun. It was. And for them, it was fun. This was the unexpected, which tells us that the space that, floats between private and public that I'll speak about, it has to facilitate both. It has to facilitate the familiarity, but it also provide opportunities for unexpected. Or else people just take that into their own hands, and, why not? And here we get to our last part, speaking about public and private. So it's a municipal nursing home. The question is where the public ends and private space ends. So even if you have a single room or a double room, everyone just can come in whenever they want. I'm talking about employees, about care workers, because they have to do their jobs, right? So their private spaces are not really private. In policy documents, we read usually nice phrases about how nursing homes are supposed to be homes. But there's a lot of invasion in that scenario. If that's a home, there's a lot of invasion into their privacy. So the question is, where is the public and where is the private? And I'll give you 2 examples. One of the example is having a drink in a nursing home. And I've been to many nursing homes in my lifetime. It really depends on how liberal, the staff is. This was quite liberal. This is one of the favorite drinks. I do not recommend, unless, you're up for some interesting experiences. Yeah, it does a job, right? So, as I said, it was quite remote nursing home. So on Wednesdays, sometimes they shifted, during COVID especially, or Thursdays, there was a mobile grocery van that would come over, and you can buy, whatever food you like, and also booze. And obviously, it was often told, please don't sell them the booze. There's a lot of problems afterwards. But, they still got it. And it depended really on the person. Someone just, by 4 p.m., they would just sing a lot of songs, especially Moderators, for whatever reason, was very popular. Some would obviously, get into fights after way too many drinks, and sometimes, there were bleeding noses, and we would have to call a police or, medical care. So that happened too. But why I'm mentioning this, because it actually, when we're speaking about public and private space, alcohol is a good example. So Because according to our law, we are not allowed to drink on public spaces unless it's a cafeteria or a bar, right? So when they were drinking in hallways and falling over in hallways sometimes, or drinking in a yard, is that a public space or is that a private space? Should we call the police, even if everything is all right, they're just sitting with open beers, right? Or should we not? And when I asked the director, how do you deal? So everybody kind of acknowledged that it's a gray area. So it really depended. I mean, in this case, they kind of allowed them, to drink as quote unquote, they're not prisoners. They're adults, We are celebrating names days and birthdays and we're having a drink too. And obviously there was a gradation of, the good, the bad, and the ugly drinker, right? Some were allowed to drink more often. For others, everybody expected trouble, so everyone was alert. But it was gray area that these residents kind of exploited in a way, or just, use their rights as being adults and to use their spaces. But it draws a question of, where the public and private interact. And the other example is of Rūta Animans. So Rūta, at the time, 56-year-old woman, and Imans, 86, who was the oldest man in a nursing home and in a wheelchair. They had an affectionate relationship, let's call it that. I mean, I don't know the nature of it, just as much as I have seen. They were definitely drinking buddies, so that was a big deal in their relationship. But they also had sexual relationship. The problem, though, was that Rūta lived in a room with another 2 women, and Imans lived in a room with another 2 men. So where do people do consensual sex in a nursing home if there's not a separate room, and if they do not have single rooms? So their rooms they lived in were not really private, were they? They also didn't have a place to do that. So what they did, they used the space that they could find. And I was warned early on that, don't go there, don't go near the lift, near the elevator, under the staircase at 3 p.m. You just don't, you just don't, avoid. Because at 3 p.m., Rūta and Imans would come together under the staircase, near the elevator, which is supposedly a public space, and have sex. The question, though, is that a public space? Because their private rooms are not private. They are adults. That is consensual relationship, consensual sex. So for me, it seemed that they were taking back what was considered a public space and making it into a private. At the same time, I don't want you to think that they were some kind of exhibitionists and that they were, because they were choosing the time very, very carefully. Why 3 p.m.? Because at 3 p.m., majority of nursing staff were drinking coffee in the office, right? So they timed. They were not exhibitionists hoping that somebody would see them. They were actually timing and making the space and the event as private as possible, because that is supposedly their home, right? So, and this question, or this discussion about public and private was constant there, right? It ran through daily life. So, getting to conclusions, the public and private was obviously always interpreted according to one's roles. And I mean that if you're an employee of the nursing home, you have a different experience or different understanding of what public and private is. If you're a resident who actually lives there and probably will also die there, it's a completely different view on the space, right? Where the public starts, where the private ends. These very, very mundane activities like drinking coffee, having sex, having a drink, watching construction work, going for a walk, very mundane activities, they were actually activities that helped them to reclaim and reshape the space that they lived in, right? And this is this dialectical relationship between the space and the person that affecting each other. These were also their opportunities to navigate the boredom, right? This very complex, not only individual, but also social and political phenomenon that we saw. They were managing this spatio-temporal reality that they found themselves in. And they were also taking back part of their agency, at least, right? They owned the time, they owned the space during those actions. So these practices recreated and reshaped the boundaries of public and private. And the last, so what to learn? We saw that this existential boredom, it ran through spaces that people inhabited there, right? So the questions I'm going to leave you with are, do spaces support who we are? Who we are as dynamic, evolving human beings through our life course, maintaining some of our interests, getting rid of the others, shifting our interests as our cognitive functions change, shifting our interests as our physical capabilities change, right? Do spaces nurture our personal growth as we move through the life course? Do the spaces adapt to the changes within us and how we experience the world? If I can read no longer, if I can hear no longer, if I can walk no longer as I used to, does the space help me with those issues or not, right? Do they nurture curiosity, the unexpected, right, that we saw, whether that's a construction work or a grocery van or a fight after drinking, right? And do they offer privacy and freedom that we as human beings need? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Anna. Actually, I think we have a moment here for one or two questions, if we have them in the room. Because, yeah, this was, for me it was quite, I don't know, both touching and a bit mind-bending about how we think about architecture and how we think about social services and where's the border. And, are there maybe some questions already in the room for Anna? Yes?
Yes, thank you very much for very, very nice, maybe not so nice story, very, very interesting story. And I would like to ask you, I think it's a question for us as architects or city planners, when we are going to think and to design a city for seniors or elderly friendly city. And of course, everyone started with needs or wishes of users. But what we could see in our this not very wide experience with this, actually this is quite stable term, senior or elderly. But when we are starting to reach these wishes or needs or something like that, actually it's huge variety of needs, wishes, abilities, and other aspects. And it's so interesting that if we are talking about first 20 years of our life, we have very, very many researches, what we need in a first year of human life, what we need in first 3 years, what we need in 4, what we need in 5, what we need for every year. And then we have teenage ages. But actually seniors covers the quite long period in our lives. And my question is, from your experience in this nursing home, could we generalize in our research minds this term senior. Could you find something, yes, this is need of senior, or still we need to go deeper and to seek for more specific needs, wishes, desires, and something like that? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. My short answer would be definitely go deeper. I do find that is one of the most problematic aspects when thinking about policies for aging, for late life, that we create this huge homogeneous mass of people, you know, starting, 60 up to whatever time we die. It's just, it's a huge mass, but the needs and the wishes, those are 30 years of our lives, right? They completely change what we physically are capable of, what we cognitively capable of, and it will also differ from one 90-year-old to other 90-year-old, right? Some 60-year-olds are maybe more fragile because of the health issues than some 80-year-olds. So I don't think this categorization that we use, and this is also the reason why I avoid the term senior, is problematic. And I do think it limits how we think about spaces and places and designs that are adaptable to different people, right? Because let's be honest, some 30-year-olds, some children are like, they have physical needs similar maybe to some people who are way older. So I do think it's not appropriate categorization, the age itself. So, and this is the reason why I do think, you know, qualitative research, we're actually going into, you know, what person needs. And then afterwards, obviously, we're extrapolating and we are generalizing, you know, the data that we find there, but actually getting to know what are the needs of people and then generalize is what is missing right now.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for sharing your experience and research interests with us. And while Rūdis is presenting, introducing the next speaker, I will thank Anna.
All right. It's my pleasure to invite the next speaker, Dominique Hauderovits from Denmark. She's a practicing architect and also an architectural researcher, and a partner in architecture office Dominique plus Serena, and also a co-author of this lovely book, Age Inclusive Public Space, that we will probably hear more about. Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the invitation. Yes, I feel very lucky to be able to build on top of the presentation that was just there, because there is a lot of overlapping themes, so that is very nice. Yeah, my name is Dominique Hauderovits. I'm an architect, and the title of my talk today is Age Inclusive Public Space. That is also the title of the book that we published in 2020. So what is maybe special for our practice is that we work with this theme on both a theoretical and a practical level. I hope you had some strong coffee today, because there's a lot of things that I want to cover. I would like to set a little bit of a framework, both for like giving us a common place to understand from. I think it's important that we share what we know and like kind of build a foundation of understanding for building further practice upon. Then I have some considerations, some things that I hope that maybe are of practical use to you in your work, in different fields. And then I want to take you through a case study that we made in our office. So the framework, when we talk about the city, many of us have this image of the city as like a dense social place where we live close, in close proximity to one another, and where also the city in itself provides us with a lot of social opportunities. The truth is that for many of us, the city looks in a quite different way. So the cities that we work in contemporaneously are planned cities that are very much influenced by this like modernist planning tradition. where the basic characteristic is that the city is divided. So it's, there's a residential area, there's an area for culture, an area for industry, for commerce, etc., etc. And this has a huge influence on the way that, it sets the framework in which we want to work. We use age as a category to plan our institutions and to structure our societies. And often we think of these ways of organizing our society as like an administrative thing, but it's important to pay attention to that these divisions also manifest themselves spatially. So this is an example I often use in Copenhagen, where you can see that space A is designated for small children, space B is designated for senior citizens in a nursing home, space C is like a school garden that is fenced off from the public space, and then D is an open public park. These areas have nothing to do with one another. There's no place where they can interact, and they also stay within the same like administrative and spatial boundaries. In this city that we're living in, the dwelling functions as a place where we retreat from the public life, right? So it's a dwelling that serves as a private space that is usually contrasted to the public. We have a development of public space itself that is designated towards different age groups. So instead of having these more general common public spaces in our cities, we're parceling up them in places that are targeted at certain age groups. And we have a development of this age-neutral space where different things can happen, like an old school kind of a plaza, for instance, where ball or football can take place, to more programmed and designated areas in our cities. So in this space, you can play ball, but when there's no one playing ball, it doesn't occupy any space. Now we have this more programmed city layout where the space that the ball play occupies is still there, even though no one is playing. I think it is also important that when we talk about age-friendly cities or age-inclusive spaces, that we kind of also pay attention to the way that we can reinforce and reenact stigma and forced identification of elderly citizens in the way that we work. So I think what we need to do is kind of broaden our understanding, and that is maybe bridging also a little bit to the question that was just in the room, like how do we understand elderly citizens? And I think we should have as a foundation that aging is a complex process. It's a non-linear process that can have both positive and negative, both permanent and temporary changes, or make temporary and permanent changes in the human beings. So it's not we should not think of it as like we're born and then we gain like competence and then we peak and then the competence deteriorates, but that we have this complex understanding of both physical, mental and psychological competences that can differ throughout the life course. And of course, these changes that condition life, they are more present in later life, but for many of us, like we change throughout our lifespan. So I think we should work against this kind of understanding of an elderly persona that has certain needs or wishes, because the age really doesn't say anything about what we can and cannot do. But in general, we can think of that space has influence on these like main themes. So it can contribute to the sense of loneliness and social isolation. It can, well-designed space can foster intergenerational contact. It can inspire physical activity and outdoor life. It can counter this sense of stigmatization. It can facilitate participation in local communities where we feel like represented and part as like legitimate members of society. But it can also provide us a sense of identity and continuity of life. And I think maybe when we talk about like creating age-friendly environments, what does that mean? I think we're, in a broad sense, engaged in enhancing life quality. And I think it can be helpful to think of life quality in these like two main parameters. So agency, that and was also talked about before, the sense of like how can the space support the sense of agency, sense of autonomy, being able to plan and control our own environments, run for errands, and act upon our wishes and desires. And in spatial context, this is often facilitated through accessibility. And the other main part of life quality can also be thought about as belonging. So how do the spaces that we create contribute to a sense of meaning and the social belonging and emotional attachments to places and people? So often I'm asked, okay, so where can we work in an age-inclusive or age-friendly way? The answer is very simple, everywhere. But I think it can be helpful to think about how the city looks from different perspectives. So some people are not able to move around very much. So maybe we should think about creating good places within or in the proximity to their dwellings or on the threshold to the common, in the nearest perimeter of where they live. An important place for life quality is the local community. So this like understanding of this 300-meter city, like what services and what opportunities are there in the closest proximity to the house. And then in a more general way about the thinking about the infrastructures and the public spaces that are provided in the city itself. And I think what is important to me is that these things and this life quality can actually be spatially provided. For instance, I really love this picture of Hermann Herzberger. This is an entrance to a nursing home room where this kind of threshold situation actually provides this sense and overlap of private and public. There's a person that can live inside of their house, but they can open like half the door and make themselves available for contact with other people. There's this bench where someone can sit actually covered from sun or rain to like have this kind of small moment of social interaction that can foster this emotional connection. But also on the city scale, we can think of how like even infrastructural places can contribute to placemaking. So this is an example from Aldo von Eyck after the war, where he takes a piece of just a road infrastructure, a roundabout, and creates a public plaza. Oh, and then how? So I think understanding the everyday life of people, and this also connects a little bit to the lecture that was before, that trying to understand what constitutes the everyday life for different people can be very, very helpful. So this is some sheets from a field work we did in a nursing home, trying to talk about what kind of range of public life or everyday life did these people have. And it kind of was very clear that these people, the residents of this nursing home, were only like living their whole life in maybe the nearest 200 meters from this nursing home. So understanding the city as a network and not thinking about developing like singular places can be a very good way of understanding also trying to bridge like the different sectors within the municipal planning. So one way to approach it is to say, okay, we approach a whole neighborhood and try to map out what potentials and what hindrances there are in the public space. People don't perceive administrative boundaries or like land plots, etc. So if we go out and see, then maybe we can see, okay, there is one traffic light that changes very fast, that makes people very difficult for them to cross the road, and over there is a need of a bench, or over there is a possibility for some cultural activity. Then we can perceive the city the way that the people that actually live in the city also perceive it, and that is like as a whole that is woven together. A good knowledge of everyday life can also help in different ways. It can improve for us to create conditions for social meetings that are already taking place, and make these meeting places more inclusive. But it can also help us with placing new meeting places, for instance, in relevant geographical places in the right way, so that it's actually relevant for the people who use that particular neighborhood. I think it's important that we integrate age-inclusive or age-friendly considerations in like a broader urban environment and development, and not as something that is special or like a special practice that is like on the side of normal practice. So this is an example, you know, probably all of you know it. It's like when you do like an elderly center with activities, many of the activities that take place in like an elderly center are the same that also happen in the city, for instance, in like a public cafe, but the way that they're perceived by people are very institutional. So maybe it's also a little bit about tearing down the boundaries between the institutional life and the normal public life. It can also be done by considering what other investments and initiatives that are already taking place in cities. For instance, there are many, probably most municipalities where we work on safe school roads, right? So how do the kids get safely to school? So there is a special infrastructure already there. Maybe you can build upon that and extend that to also reach places that maybe are of more importance to adults later in life. Yeah. And it's maybe also about broadening our understanding of how the existing resources in the built environment can already be used or can be used. So for instance, often people say, but the elderly in this community, they don't have access to a public toilet, so they are not that much outdoors. And there are examples, for instance, this is from Germany, where there's like a private-public partnership where they're mapping out toilets where people, businesses can like say, okay, but I can make my toilet publicly available. Some of them get paid like a little fee from the municipality, and in that way you actually can make visible a network of public amenities that can be used by the citizens without the municipality being the one who has to pay for one very expensive public toilet. So also from a sustainability point of view, maybe it's about like seeing the resources that are already in the city in a different way. And maybe it's also about seeing some boundaries as opportunities. So this is an example from Japan, from a nursing home, where the guy who bought the nursing home, he bought this like plot of land with 3 small houses on them, next to quite intense infrastructure, a narrow road. So it was cut off from the nursing home here was cut off from this road with this like what do you call it? Not a fence, but yeah. And what he decided to do was to tear down the wall between the nursing homes area and that road, and actually provide like a shortcut for the children going to school so that they could walk through the nursing home's garden. And then he installed some play equipment in this yard. So the kids actually started to go through there, to play there, and also, so it kind of set the scene for a common space that both the residents of the nursing home and the school kids could share and use together. And it has actually brought about this very like rich place. So this is a drawing of the nursing home that has since then expanded with like a public restaurant that also provides food for the residents of the nursing home. So this boundaries between the institutional and the public and the private are kind of broken down. And it has actually integrated that particular nursing home in this neighborhood. But I also think that it's important to reflect on, I'm just checking my time, it's important to reflect on how ingrained many of the like ways that we think about space and division, how ingrained they are both in us as professionals, but also in the community at large. So this is an example from an assignment that I'm currently working on. And when I was briefed, so the brief was to do like an urban renewal for this plaza. So there are many cultural institutions. There's like a library, concert hall, like a music school, and a center for senior citizens here. And the brief that I got was like, create something for the small children over here and for the slightly bigger children over there, and they're up for the teenagers, and then maybe the rest is for the city. But the seniors wanted nothing to do with it because they had their own place outside of the senior center. And this is a kind of very clear image of how we think about space and how we think about providing different amenities to people. And what we did was to say, okay, we're going to see this as one space, and we're going to see the needs of all these kinds of different citizens and put them into one and like layer them on top of each other. So we will be building, so construction starts in the spring, is this space. And what we have done, we have not actually changed the space of the senior citizens because they didn't wish that we change it because they're happy with what they have. But what we have done is like kind of recontextualized it. So we have changed everything around it so that they also have like benefit from the changes of the urban renewal, providing with plants and shadow. But we have also extended like the main plaza to include their space. So it's a way of like trying to see like how can you work also around the boundaries that we have, and how can we create places that are truly like layered on top of each other. So this will be like a play area, but there will also be like a drinking fountain that the people from the senior center also can use, etc., etc. And yeah, I'm not going to go into these examples, but I also think it's important that we pay attention to that public space or inclusive public space can also be about something else than functions. It doesn't need to be playgrounds or like programmed space, but also like these atmospheric qualities that spaces can have, can provide us with like common experiences that we can share across age groups. And the last thing that, I need to speed up, I can see, it's like our case study that we did a couple of years ago alongside our book. But this is also like a communal urban renewal project. We have a nursing home here, some senior citizens living unit or like dwelling units here, a local supermarket, etc. Just normal villas along a small road. So it's nothing special. As part of the municipal process that was done in that place, they had already done participatory processes, but no one had actually listened to that like huge and present elderly population that was living in this area. So we tried to get a little bit of creative in like seeking out the voices of that particular group, inviting ourselves to their homes to drink a cup of coffee through like nursing assistants or like home carers. We had a workshop at a nursing home to talk about like what constitutes quality of life. What is your public persona? Like what do you care about, and what gives you joy? And also we did this mapping that I talked about before about like limitations and borders of their everyday life, to like understand how important this space was for them, the space that was closest to them. And also it wasn't just like a functional workshop, so it wasn't only about like how can you move and do you sit in a wheelchair or not, but also what provides meaning. And we talked about like local landscape types and materials and what could like invoke their senses, etc. So when you do a project like this, like to place the space correctly is very important. So the municipal plot was here. There's the supermarket, the parking lot, and the entrance to the supermarket. And these residents of this nursing home, they were able to walk down here, but they had no business on hanging out on like the backside of the supermarket. So what we proposed was like a public and private land swap, so the supermarket could get some more parking lots, which they love, and then we could develop this public plaza in front of the supermarket to like kind of extend the social life of the supermarket that was already there and giving it just a different framework. So it has actually created like this little plaza village where people from the nursing home can come. So this is the place that is closest to them. Some of the residents there, they actually bring their guests down there. There was also very much about what was talked about earlier, that you don't have the sense of the privacy in the nursing home, but actually if you take your guest out to a public space, then you can just sit and have a conversation and just be part of that everyday life that already happens there. You can sit in the middle, close to the entrance, so that you can catch any acquaintances that are coming by, or there's just a space to sit down if you're waiting for the bus. So also this sense of different choices was quite important for us to create. And of course, what is it that you plan for? The everyday life should be important, but maybe the spaces that you can create can also create meaning in a larger sense. So for instance, here they start to put their Christmas tree, the local Christmas tree, on this plaza, and kind of also has this other rhythm. I'm not going to go into this. Often we talk about age-friendly as something that is like a functional, like a design parameter, backrests, armrests, warm materials, and all of that is good to know and good to work with, but I'm also like fighting for that to be like an integrated part of the design, so it doesn't need to look like something that is age-friendly to be that, or can be functional. And people perceive space with their body in a very intuitive way. So the people who need the armrest will just like seek out the armrest when they need it, but also providing opportunities for play integrated as in the design of the space, so that for children the stones are something that they can jump on or jump up on this like plant place here, but for someone in a wheelchair it actually brings the plants and the smells of the plants closer to their faces. So providing this kind of like open-ended design that can be used in different ways. And also just the last comment on universal design, if that is something that you just work with as a design parameter, you can also actually integrate it in the way that you design from the beginning. And here we could make a universally designed ramp only because we kind of lifted the whole of the terrain up, and it made us lose some centimeters, so we could create a better ramp. So it's something that, as long as you just have it as a condition, once you start designing, it doesn't need to be like an add-on solution, but one entrance for everyone that is entering the supermarket, and not just one for the healthy and one for the other users. And coming back to this this idea of sense of meaning and materials and recalling maybe some local and geographical context. So this workshop experience with the materials from the local beaches was kind of translated into the material palette of this place, and also trying to give it some qualities throughout the different times of the year. Yeah, that was me. I'm sorry for going over time, but yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dominic, so much. Please keep your questions, both for audience in the conference hall and online. Please keep your questions to the panel, because during the panel, both panel participants will discuss among them, but also the audience will get time for your questions. So, and now next, I will introduce I'm happy to introduce Christian Hellevang from Norwegian Association of Local and Regional Governments. And Christian holds degrees in public administration, but I connect you with network building and spreading good ideas, best practice, good practice examples from municipalities. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, so my name is Christian Hellevang. I work in a Norwegian Association of Local and Regional Authorities in Norway. And all municipalities in Norway are members of KS. We have 357 municipalities. Some are very small and some are quite big. And they are very diverse. And also all 15 regions in Norway are members of KS. And I have been working in KS for almost 18 years. So I have a lot of different areas. I'm working with volunteering sector, leisure time for children and young people, youth participation, social housing, age-friendly communities, and also universal design. So I'm working with a lot of things. And that's quite interesting because municipalities, they are so diverse and they're doing everything from you are born to you are dead. So municipalities, they have responsibility for everything. And also now in Norway, municipalities have big problems because last year 50% of municipalities in Norway was in minus. And this year, between 50% and 75% of the municipality will be in minus. So we have big problems in municipalities now in Norway. We have to cut in culture, we have to cut for youth leisure time activities, and we have to reduce everywhere. And this is quite complex. And also in Norway now we have problems because we will get even less money in the future. So this is only a taste of what is waiting us in Norway now. And also in Norway we have lack of people. We don't have enough people working in the municipalities. And in 10 years it will be even worse. And that's why we need universal design. We need to make society more accessible for everybody. And also people in Norway, they have to expect that they have to live at home as long as possible. So maybe you have to live at home until you are 85 or 90 years old, and then you can have short time in nursing home, maybe only 3 months, 4 months before you, yeah. So this makes us to think in a new way, because before people was thinking that when they're needing a nursing home, they can move to the nursing home, but that will not be the fact in the future. We have to live at home. And we also need that the voluntary sector in Norway are doing much more than today, because municipalities cannot manage this. Yeah. And this was not, Daina didn't ask me to tell this, but I think it's important to know the situation in Norway, because it's quite heavy now. And it will be even more heavy in the future. but I was going to talk about universal design. And in 2009, the Norwegian government, they had a very nice plan. It was to make Norway universal design by 2025. And this made people very happy. The municipality was working very hard on this because it was a goal that everybody wanted to contribute to. But then we had the election, and it was a new government, a conservative government, and they reduced this aim. So from 2017, this goal was not included. But municipalities are still working very hard to make Norway universal design, but it will not happen by 2025. And in Norway, we are very fond of working with municipal network as a method. It's very important to understand that participation in municipal network is different to participate in a conference like this. In municipal networks, the participant has to prepare before, they have to work during the network meetings, and they also get homework, and nobody wants homework, but it's so important to have this homework because they're learning so much when they're doing the homework, but also they are prepared in the meetings to share their knowledge. And yeah, so homework is one key element to do this municipal network very good. And the municipal networks are only for municipalities and country authorities. And this makes big problems in Norway because also researchers, disability organization and other wants to participate because they can see that this network creates a lot of knowledge. But it's strictly for municipalities and regions. And since 2013, we have had this municipal network for universal design. It's a regional network. We have divided Norway into 3 regions, and we have a lot of regional network meetings in this network. And the aim of the project is to have strategies to increase the accessibility of existing buildings and outside spaces in Norway. They are sharing good examples, and they are also developing new tools and methods for increased accessibility, both on existing buildings and outside spaces, but also on meeting places. And we have focus on things which is easy to do, because if it costs money, it's more heavy. And 75 municipalities are participating in the network, and also all 15 regions are in the network. And then you ask, how can we do this? Who is paying? And in Norway, it's the government who give KS the money to do this. So we get about 7 million each year to do this. And I was calculating this morning, and 7 million Norwegian kroner is about 600,000 euros. And for this, we have these good events, and we are also producing a lot of booklets and information things. So the government is quite important to do this. And to have this network meeting is quite demanding, because it's much more easy to have a conference like this. The participant in this network is quite demanding. They are demanding a lot, and they're not easy to satisfy. So it's hard work. And the participants in this network, they get competence, they get sharing experience across sectors, and also some financial support from KS, because I told you about this heavy situation in Norway with lack of money, so we also have to give municipalities and regions money to come to the meetings, because it's quite expensive to go. If you are flying from north of Norway to Oslo, the tickets cost maybe 600 euros or more, so it's quite expensive to fly internally in Norway. And also government support them with more money. So in this network we have made a lot of handbooks, and this handbook of age-friendly communities was published in 2021. And if you look at the other part, you can see that we say that universal design plus local knowledge plus co-creation makes age-friendly communities. And I think that's quite true. It's so important with both local knowledge and co-creation to make this. We need to talk to people, and we need to involve people. This you can find on our homepage. And in the beginning of this year, we also published this new handbook. It's about active and social at all ages. And it's 84 pages, and it consists of a lot of examples on different good examples from Norway. It's in planning, it's in meeting places, it's parks, hiking trails. Yeah, it's quite nice, and if you go to the homepage of KS, you will find it. This picture is from south of Norway, close to the border of Sweden, and it's a new part to rock cavings in Sarpsborg. And also last year I was in Latvia, and I have discovered that you in Latvia is more advanced than us in Norway regarding walking paths. You have so many nice walking paths in Latvia. So last year I discovered that we can learn more from you than you can learn from us. So because you have been developing a lot of walking paths in Latvia. And this part is a part to a popular swimming spot in Halden. Yeah. And this is from municipality of Stord. It's in west part of Norway. And they have been doing a lot. Stord municipality is one of the municipalities in Norway who has done a lot regarding age-friendly communities. They have involved private sector, they have involved carpenters, they have involved building industry, they have involved the voluntary sector. So they're doing a lot community-based work in Stord. And they're also doing quite fine in universal design. In Norway it's also very popular to make playgrounds universal design, but that sometimes it could be demanding, because if you look at the payment, it's not environmental friendly. So we have some problems in Norway making universal design, but also making things environmental friendly. So this is a contrast. So we have to think about both. And this is a picture from Bodø. Bodø is a city north of Norway, and Bodø is maybe one of the best cities regarding universal design in Norway. And they made 3 new schools in 7 years in Bodø. And the first one was not good because they had done everything regarding the law, but the architects and the builders didn't understand the users, so it was not good for the users, but it was right. It was in line with the regulation, but it was not good. The second school who was built was not good because they didn't understand the users, they didn't understand who should use the school. But this third school is good because they involve the users, they ask the users, what do you need? how can we build this school in a good way that is good for you? And they asked this girl, Matilde, who was 11 years old, and she has cerebral palsy, and she said, I want to manage on my own. And to do that, I need this chair to sit on, because if I do that, I can manage my shoes alone. I don't need help. So then they have these chairs in the whole school, so the children can sit down and help themselves. Very easy to do, and of course the municipality save money because they don't need so many assistants to do this. And this is from the girls' bathroom. They asked a girl in a wheelchair, what do you need? And she said, I want to do my makeup myself. And to do the makeup, I need the mirror. So they moved the mirror beside the sink so she can do the makeup herself, and she was happy. Didn't cost anything, easy to do when you plan it early. This is 3 publications we have done. The first one is Into the Wild. Then it's one called Keeping Active. And then it's Norwegian Nature to Everyone. It's on the homepage of KS. This is a wooden pathway along the Glomma River in Sarpsborg. And Vegard, he says, going for a walk where there are other people who feel safe. So this is about age-friendly society, but also about safety. And this is a path into the Sognefjell Mountains. And this pathway is good regarding universal design, but it's also good regarding nature, because it's also protect the nature, because in Norway it's a problem that people are going everywhere and they are destroying the nature. But this pathway is very light. It's easy to remove if you want to remove it, but it's also very good for wheelchair people, so they can go into the mountains. And this is a path over the lake in Fyresdal, and this is quite popular. Everybody wants to go to this pathway. Old people, young people, children, everybody likes this pathway. And this is Time municipality close to Stavanger in west part of Norway. And they have made this nice bridge across this very nice lake. And this has become a spot where everybody wants to go on Sundays to go to have the Sunday trip. And this is from Oslo. This is a part of Oslo where it's a lot of people with problems living in this part of Oslo. And this was not a nice place before, but the municipality wanted to lift this part of Oslo, and they built this Stovner Tower. And it has also become a very popular place to go, and you can go to the top with a wheelchair or, In Norway, universal design has created a lot of resistance. People in the parliament think universal design is ugly. Many people working with building thinks universal design is ugly. So it's not easy because it's a lot of resistance against universal design. But I think this picture shows that universal design also can be quite nice. And this is from Stavanger municipality in the west part of Norway. And they have done this nice walking path along the fjord. And they also have made this cut towards the mountain. And it's a very popular place to go in a Sunday. Both children and old people like this place. And this is in Voss municipality. But time is running, so I think I have to skip saying something about that. And it's also important that people can not only walk but also sleep. So this belongs to an organization who is providing places to sleep for people who like to walk. So this is 5 cottages close to the sea, and one of them has universal design. So if you need universal design, you can use the toilets, and you can also use everything in this one of the cottages. Yeah, this is Bergen, maybe the nicest place in Norway. Yeah, it's my hometown. This is an old park and train station in Norway. And this is Fyresdal in Norway. They have got many prizes for this international. My time is out, so I have to be quite fast now. This is Huk in Oslo. And this is Trollstigen in western part of Norway. Then they have done a lot of things to get people into the forest and mountain. And of course I've been there. And it's of course not possible to make Norway universal design. And this is everywhere. So this is from Preikestol, close to Stavanger. It's a mountain, and it's very popular, and everybody wants to go there. But it's not easy to go there if you're sitting in a wheelchair. It's one of the nicest places in Norway to go if you like walking in the forest. Yeah, this is the last slide. So this is some of the publications we have made. They're all in our homepage. So sorry, I used 1 minute more than I should. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, and yes, many thanks to Christian and for the very, I think, honest and insightful presentation. And I'm not sure, we do have now many very nice walkways in Latvia. I'm not sure, after your presentation, can I agree that we have more or better? But yes, thank you very much.
And now it's time for the first panel discussion, and then I will invite the panel guests, and then I will start with the moderator of the panel, Sirle Salmistu, senior lecturer at Tallinn University of Technology, Tartu College, and a partner at the Landscape Architecture Office Outsiders in Estonia. And Sirle's research interests are age-friendly and healthy community planning, urban aging, accessibility. So please come, Sirle, and I will invite Dominique to join the panel in front, and Christian, please join the panel, and there will be 2 more participants, Louise Schild-Thomasen from the Nordic Welfare Centre, please join the panel. And Andis Rinkevits from the State Police of Latvia, please join the panel. And now I will give the floor to Sirle and
So thank you very much for this nice introduction. Hello, everyone. As Daina said, my name is Sirle, and we have a great people in our panel over here. I'm very grateful for the presentations Dominic and Christian were giving, and I hope it really inspired you, built environment professionals in the audience and online, but as well other related fields in social care and social welfare and everybody who is here. So I'm really happy that we have such a mixture of people here. As Dominic and Christian had a great chance to tell about their jobs and their backgrounds, so I'd like to first give a brief introduction to Louise and to Andis. Please, could you share what you do and what's your work about, so we can set a great framework for our panel over here.
Hi, I'm Louise Schild-Thomasen from the Nordic Welfare Centre. Let's see if I can open my presentation that I promised would be short. So, can you not change with the... I'm pushing the arrows, but they don't care. See?
Oh, it came.
With patience, it will hopefully go quicker during the presentation. But I'm a senior advisor, an anthropologist of background, and working at the Nordic Welfare Centre. For those of you who were not here yesterday, just very briefly say that we are one of 12 institutions under the Nordic Council of... Oh God, no. That's what it's doing. It is shifting by itself. So you will endure my presentation like this, otherwise we will have to wait very long for each slide to change. Sorry about that. And we contribute to developing the welfare initiatives in the Nordic region and also in the Baltic, in collaboration with the Baltic region, by compiling and disseminating knowledge. And we do that through reports like the one Pia introduced yesterday, by coordinating expert networks, and by different events, conferences, seminars, webinars, and so on. And one of our key areas is older adults, dementia, and welfare technology. But then I will be selective then. I can choose. What I'm bringing here today is experiences from the Nordic Network for Age-Friendly Cities that we have coordinated since 2017. It now comprises 16 cities across Sweden, Finland, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland. And we also have a region in Sweden joining the network, and Centre for Age-Friendly Norway that works closely with KS and represents, I think now it is 229 municipalities. So obviously they have a big resource background there. We haven't really talked about WHO or what age-friendly is in that context, but age-friendly was, or the global age-friendly network for age-friendly cities and communities was established back in 2010 by the World Health Organization in responding to the global aging of the population and also increasing urbanizations, with goes on very rapidly in some regions. of the world. And as you see, I've brought this flower here because I think we're talking about some very important matters here today at the conference about urban planning and development and the possibilities of the physical spaces and housing, which is incredibly important, and looking at the age-friendly as a concept and what these municipalities have committed to is the very difficult, meticulous long haul of developing age-friendly communities across sectors. So if you say age-friendly, it is also about counteracting ageism. It is also about looking at how do you get around transportation-wise in a city. What possibilities do you have to be active, to have employment, to be volunteer? And how are you socially included or not in a society? So as well as the care services that we provide. So it is quite a wide concept, and also why that not one single sector can lift this agenda on its own. So I think you will get the slides after the conference. So just brief, a few examples of how we work at the Nordic Welfare Centre. These are some, apart from the networks, some recent publications. This is from 2022. Actually, my colleague from yesterday, Pia-Nivela Westman, was a very strong force in making this happen, looking at indicators for active and healthy aging across the Nordic region. This was our sister organization, Nordregio, a research institute that undertook that. A mapping of active and healthy aging strategies and initiatives across the Nordic region. The picture is in Swedish, but it's also available in English. Colleague of mine, Lars Lindberg, is working with Universal Design, and he was part of making this about Universal Design and socioeconomic analysis, looking both Nordic but also internationally at what is available. And these are just some examples, so not exhaustive at all, but loneliness and social isolation is also one of our areas that we work with, and also as Pia presented the report yesterday, and after the report was published about dementia, preventing dementia, we have newer research actually showing that one of the highest risk factors in later life is actually loneliness when it comes to counteracting or preventing dementia. So for many good reasons, this is a very important topic, both for the individual and also for our societies. Yeah, so I think that maybe gave a very, very brief idea of how we work at the Nordic Welfare Centre, and I look forward to the panel.
Thank you, Louise. And now I'd like to ask Andis, come over here. I mean, we have a selection of people from Nordics. We have a Nordic network a representative, Louise. We have a person from Denmark, a person from Norway, and we have a person from Latvia, finally. And how state police fits in here is also an interesting. So
hopefully it's interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you. Good morning, colleagues, I would say. My name is Andis. I'm working, I'm serving in the state police, more than 20 years already. So I do fit here very well in this conference, and I'm also very strategic driven. So I'm planning ahead. I know I will have to be living in some cities in some future. So I'm trying to make the city for me for after 20 years. So this is really the good topic to discuss. I will try to share a few ideas during the panel. However, why I'm here? My main task within the police actually is a prevention, of course, and one of the fields we are very seriously actually trying to work is we have to somehow to understand the criminals and the bad guys, I would say like that, And one of the things we should understand how to influence them. And one of the fields and one of the things that really influences us as a human, and also those bad guys, it's environment. So that's why probably I'm here. I will try to stress that point in my on the panel. What are those bullet points probably you should take with you back home about the environment, how that affects badly and also in a positive way us humans. How can we foster the good things and probably try to avoid or cancel the bad ones? Because working in the field, working in the city, we do see many good things that city planners, architects, they're proud of, and they really do work very well, and then people feel safe, and because the feeling is also one of the part of the safety, not only the physical thing, but also the feeling. And we also see the bad things. And so that's probably why I'm here, to share the good and the bad stories as well. So thank you for being with us in not sunny. I would usually say sunny Riga, but it's not sunny today. So very well, warm welcome, and yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Andis. It's always sun above the clouds. Of course, safety and sense of security is a big component in our lives, so it all needs to come together. So first, I'd like to ask the audience if you have any questions for Dominic or for Christian as a start from their presentations. Because I'm looking at the Slido and there's no questions for them, but perhaps something that they've been sharing inspired you and you'd like to a little bit elaborate on something, or we get going. You're shy. No big deal. We try to warm you up. So anyone would like to respond? Go ahead. I don't want to make like a sequence here and questions, answers. It would like to be more to have like a discussion. And anytime you feel like joining in, so just raise your hand. So probably my first question or my first point for you would maybe we could start most important things about this topic: inclusive design, inclusive environments, or however we name it, age-friendly or healthy or safe or all-inclusive. So what would be your major message or let's say a key takeaway regarding this topic to the audience? So how you see this from your perspective? So there are definitely several points to talk about, but let's start with one perhaps as a start. So who would like to start? Louise, would you take the lead?
Yeah, if I can get help. Thank you, Dominic. I feel like my upper body is a bit too short for these microphones. Well, it can be hard to say one thing. If you've given me the choice to say more, I would definitely highlight also the cross-sectoral work, the importance of network and so on. But one thing that I find is very important, both in counteracting ageism, in creating social and physical spaces, buildings, meeting places that actually work for the people, us who use them, is the inclusion and co-creation aspects of planning and design, whether it is physical buildings or environments or activities. From my experience with the Nordic network, I would say that, I mean, when you become a member of the WHO Global Network as a municipality, you are obliged to undertake a baseline measurement. How age-friendly is our city? Where you obviously need to include the voices of older people.
But then, as you develop your initiatives, your program, what these cities also do is continuously work with different groups of older people, different socioeconomic groups, different age groups, even different geographically placed groups. So I would very much highlight the co-creation process as part of the age-friendly endeavor for many reasons, and also the wideness in methods. Not everybody wants to be included by coming to a big meeting in the town hall. Some you need to meet very locally, like your beautiful example. It's not the first time I hear it, but I still love it with the nursing home. And if we want to create these socially sustainable, integrated societies, we need to also think of how we include and create with different groups. Because some groups don't necessarily see themselves as part of society in the same way as everybody else does. Some have different ways of participating. One example is older people with a migrant background that we did an event for especially. And I could highlight one example from Göteborg in Sweden. From Göteborg in Sweden, where they have, apart from the older people's councils that we can draw on in the Nordic countries and the municipalities, they have a group of voluntary people from different parts in the city that they create this initiative with. So where would you like benches to be put? How should we work with this specific new initiative that we're doing? And now, as a new thing, the department in the municipality, I will end there, who works with designing roads and the physical spaces, will start to work together with this future developers group of seniors, because they see the benefits of working with them, even though it was an initiative that started in the older care department, you could say. So it's a good example of how you can draw on resources like that.
So co-creation and engagement of people is your message mostly. I mean, there was so many stuff that you were saying right now already, but what I
it's a key component,
yes,
then
a key component, a cornerstone of it. But however, what does it really mean, or what does it really take? Because sometimes we tend to, I mean, it's easy to say, let's do co-creation, let's do public engagement, and so it doesn't happen like that. So it needs resources, it needs time, it requires a lot of effort to make this work. So it's sometimes we see it beside our daily work. So it's definitely, I mean, if our working day ends at 5 o'clock, and so we need to do something above it. So it may seems like a lot of effort to put into that. So any comments on that kind of attitudes? Yeah, Dominic, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually have a thought about that, because sometimes when we talk about this kind of concepts, for instance, universal design or age friendliness or inclusive environments, etc., we also maybe tend to think about it as something that happens like outside of ourselves, or as like a special thing that we need to consider. But in many ways, it's also just about like applying the skills that you have as a human, and like trying to put yourself into other people's shoes, and that in itself doesn't require a huge and very costly process. And sometimes in the projects that we do, because the building process can be difficult or very long, so maybe some of the municipal participatory processes, for instance, have been taken place before the program was written, before we get an assignment, and maybe there is no money for us to spend on like going to making like a huge workshop to invite people, etc., etc. But just going to a place and like sitting on a bench and like observing what is happening around you, or going to a neighborhood and like trying to understand. So so maybe the effort isn't that, it doesn't need to be, of course, if the organization is there and you can make something out of it, that's great, but it doesn't need to hold you from engaging in that particular environment, or with those particular people, or with that particular problem, just because you don't have that huge organization in the back. So I think it's also about like creating just small opportunities. Like if you can be just, maybe you don't, of course, I think it's nice that Norway should be universally designed and all of Norway, and I think it's good that we have that goal, but we can also just think, okay, but can I just do this one little thing that makes this place a little bit better, so that we have, like, we understand that there's a layering of ambitions, and everything that we do will make the place a little bit better, and then that lifts up from the bottom. So I think that's important, that we don't set ourselves also goals that are very like unrealistic to reach, but integrated in all the practices. And I think also, and this is another point that I have, is also there's a lot of activity, building activity or social activity that is going on, and maybe it's also about demanding more of the people that, if, for instance, if you as a municipality is planning something and you engage an architect, you can also demand from them that they take into consideration these things, universal design, age friendliness, etc. Maybe it's just about asking, like, have you thought about this perspective? And then they also become aware that they need to integrate it in their practice.
Mm-hmm. Louise, you wanted to answer comment my question initially, but did Dominic already respond what you were about to say? Or?
I very much agree with how Dominic sees it, and I will also mention that a lot, it may sound that if you're a member of the WHO Global Network, you have tons of resources for working with this agenda. This is not necessarily the case in these municipalities. It really is a lot about change of perspective, a lot of also internal work inside the different departments of the municipalities. What does age-friendly look like when you shovel snow, for example, or in a completely different arena. In Uppsala, they had great success inviting older senior citizens to eat lunch at schools. So it didn't really cost money, but it was just a way of rethinking something that already exists and bringing that together. So it can be very big and flashy, but it really also is a long haul in change of perspective and integration.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Making small steps, but also kind of easy intervention and rethinking, reconceptualizing some ideas. I mean, it eventually doesn't really matter how we call something. It actually matters what we do, and we can do stuff. Okay, Christian, you wanted to add a comment on top of what we've said already? Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I think that if Norway are going to manage, we need universal design in Norway, because without universal design, we will not manage. And it's a problem because most of the houses in Norway are already built, and we are still building very small flats in Norway who is not accessible for people. So, and also many people insist making houses with stairs. So most houses in Norway have stairs. And if you have a stair into the house, it's not accessible for everybody. And they are also quite small, so it's not easy to live there if you're old and need some equipment, wheelchair or something else. So we are moving too slowly in Norway. We don't understand what is going to meet us in 10, 15 years. So that's a problem. And also in Norway, it's still resistance against universal design because many people think it's ugly and we don't need it. And and that's also quite, when we introduced age-friendly societies in Norway 6 years ago, everybody liked the concept of age-friendly societies because everybody knows that they will be old. And all municipalities in Norway want to work with universal design, so no, not universal, with age-friendly societies. So in Norway, it's all municipalities are working very hard with age-friendly societies, but not everybody is working so hard with universal design. So it's different, yeah. And it's also a problem because we need competence. We need non-formal competence, but we also need formal competence at universities. So it's important that university provides education in this field. And in Norway, we lack formal education in this, and also before the Nordic Minister of, they had this education in Göteborg before. They have this Nordic School of Public Health, and it was a very nice school in Göteborg, providing education in public health and universal design, but it was closed down. I think it was partly because of lack of money, but also because they thought that the countries should keep this themselves. Yeah.
Thank you, Christian. It's somehow rewarding to hear that you in Norway are also facing the same issues, even though we think Norway is like a leading country in terms of universal design, but also age-friendly communities, right? So there are problems, similar issues everywhere. And we struggle, you struggle, everyone is struggling the same issues, but still we can make a difference by little steps. So thank you for saying that, because we are used to listen to great practices, good examples, but we don't very much hear about what are the challenges or what are the failures, let's say. So I'm really glad you are sharing these issues with us too. But I'd like to turn to Andis. So I know you have a list of bullet points what you'd like to share with us. So what are your thoughts about this and what you bring to the table?
Well, most probably I'm not going to list all of the bullet points. I will keep them for later probably, but when I came this morning to the conference, I was really listening very well. I took a lot of notes, and there are actually two concepts I heard, and I would like to address them. I'm not the city planner, I'm not the architect, so probably I might misunderstand or not very well understand the concept as such, but there are two important things I would like to address. One is inclusive design, and the other is city or space for everyone. And those two concepts, as I understood, they're very important for us to feel good in the city. But what I would like to, where I would like to draw your attention, that actually those two concepts are very, they can really hit, they can really have a very bad side effect on the safety as well. So when planning the city and trying to open the city for everyone, we should really we should really understand that for the environment to be safe, and not only physical safe, so nothing is happening, but also to feel safe there, which is a huge part actually. In order for the environment to be safe, it should have some kind of control. Whether that is enforced by the police, that is not most welcome thing at all, or it should be done by those living or working or being in that environment. And when we open, and that's what we have seen for a lot of years already, when we open the space for everyone, we do lose the ownership. And when we lose the ownership of the space, we lose the control of the space. So, and that's where a lot of bad things start to happen. So, and that's probably, Dominic, you showed the picture, there was like the premise with the closed environment that was open for the go-through for the students, I think. That's a perfect example of that. We should try to avoid both ends, actually, because if the environment is closed, it is closed. So there's no even the not control. There are no additional eyes on the street as well. But if we open up, it can have this side effect that those actually who are, I would say, legal owners, but who are living there, working there, or just being there, they start to feel unsafe and to avoid the environment they're actually living. And one of the good examples is there was one city in Latvia. They rebuilt the playground for the kids and put the benches for the parents just to sit and to take care of their kids. And what the planners didn't take into account, probably it was not even possible, but probably that's why we are here, just to learn from our mistakes as well. What they didn't take into account that was the park a lot of strange guys like me were visiting. So for me, as the security or safety expert, this is the one worst scenario ever to be. When there's the kid playing, my kid playing, there is a path for the totally other for the strangers. There's a bench where all the strangers are sitting, and what you are doing, you are taking away the possibility for me as a parent to really take care of my child, because everyone fits there. All the people going through by their fits in this area, so I can't notice any person who is not actually like I wouldn't like that person to be there. So and that's the problem. That's really the problem when we mix all the areas, all the areas together. They should be inclusive. That's totally true, because one of the other things of the safety is social connection. It's not working. It will never work if we are not having this social connection. So, and what I feel sometimes, and this is I think the hardest thing for city planners and architects, you are like doctors. You have to find this real middle somewhere in between, because if there's no social connection between the people, that the area will be isolated at all. So, and it's bad again. But if it's too open, it's bad as well. So where to find this? I don't know, the real middle. It's quite hard. So, and that's probably was also my question, whether you ever had a chance to take or to speak with the people in that area that was opened up, just to see how do they feel. Probably there was nothing happening at all, because there were a lot of people passing by and nothing bad happened. But I am just guessing, I don't know, of course. Maybe their feeling of safety was taken away or just reduced. So those are things I would like to stress at the moment. Thank you.
So thank you, Andis. Maybe it's a good moment at this point just to maybe show the second slide of your presentation, because we don't actually have very much time left. I mean, we don't have the entire day, unfortunately, but can I just show the slide of yours about, the handbook for making safe environments? Would you mind?
No,
I mean,
no.
just to make, just to show that people would know that in Latvia, in here, you have developed a handbook for built environment professionals, or could you comment on that? What is this?
Yeah,
I'm showing
this
you.
Is, I wouldn't say we developed. This is a lot of actually city planners, architects, and police officers. They are working together in the field of safe city and what actually makes the city safe. So I'm not the author of the concept at all. I'm just the one really interested in that. How do we can affect the human? How do we can feel or change our behavior within the city by the instruments city provides us, so the physical environment, and how do the physical environment affect the social environment and vice versa. So this is just the book we have developed for internal use here in Latvia, in Latvian, as a tool for the city planners, and those are two versions of the book where we actually addressed many of those concepts that we as the representatives of security, we see as conflicting. So we don't have the right answers at all. We don't know the right answers. We just see that some of the things we are trying to develop, they are not working. And not working because not they are bad, but because they have the human nature. So, and the problem is, and that's one of the things I also don't have answers. Sorry, I don't have answers today at all, is that the environment, it is changing. So you can imagine the city somewhere in the 13th century, whatsoever. The feeling and the structure of the city and the feeling of those living there and physical, all the crimes, everything was totally different as it is today. So, and you can, and that's the problem or the tough thing we should understand, that the environment we built, it will stay there for a long time, and the feeling in that environment will change. How to be that smart guy to guess what will happen in the future and now. So I'm looking up to the experts who probably know the right things.
Thank you, Andis. I just wanted to make sure that we will raise awareness of this document here in Latvia. You can find it in internet. I checked it out. I was following the pages. I didn't understand much, but pictures. But Dominic, you wanted to comment on something?
Yes, I think it's some very important points. I think this perceived safety is a very big factor in creating age-inclusive environments. And also this thing about the social connection, I think it's also very important. But these are also factors that one can work with as soon as you start to think about it in practice. You can actually integrate it. So, for instance, in Denmark, we have some examples of urban renewal projects where for instance, a social housing place where the municipality wanted to make an investment, and they came with a lot of money and did some nice things, and then the youth of that place start to destroy the things and burn it down, etc. And then it was like a bad story, and the municipality says, oh, but we came with all these good things that we wanted to make, but now you have destroyed it, right? And then they actually gave it another go and included the youth and the people of that place and co-created some of the spaces with them. So the local communities also got like a sense of ownership of the thing that was changed. So it was not something that came like top down and was enforced into that local place, but they invested in making the conversation and including people. And then the change comes from within, and the youth that was had co-created the furniture, then of course they don't burn it down, and then you create a different sense of belonging to that place. So I think it's very rightly, as Louisa says, that this not to impose something top down, but try to foster it from the bottom up and include the people that you want to create something with is a very important key to many different aspects. Not only because it's a good thing to include people in itself, but that it actually creates different outcomes.
Different creates of belonging and sense of belonging, yeah, and sense of neighborhood, sense of community, sense of owning the place, and maybe keeping eyes on the streets or eyes on the spot. Yes.
Just probably last comment from me. This is actually very, very, very important what you mentioned. The sense of ownership, and that it should come from the owners of the place, the people living there or just working there or being there, and that's actually probably the hardest thing to understand, because for example, we as the police officers, we do see the whole city as the one place, but the sense of ownership is very locally based. So I care what's happening here in Riga and all the suburbs or all the places in the city. My wife just doesn't care. She cares about the place she lives, the place she works, and the place where the kid is. So, and that's it. So, and probably that is the way how this sense of ownership and all that that's actually flourishing from that should be developed, really locally based. So I'm really glad seeing that Riga, the municipality of Riga is working with the, I don't know the name in English, of course, but those local neighborhoods, trying to as I know, there are a lot of projects just to get the people together, just to start doing some things, some positive things, and that in the consequence of that will be the sense of ownership. So, and if you have the ownership, you will try to, and at least you will notice the guy who is not willing to be there, or who you would like to be there. That's the most simplest reaction. Probably you will even try to push them away, so you will make your environment safer.
So finally, there are actually a few questions in Slido, although we're kind of coming up with our time, but I'd like to read them out loud. So if any of you could give a comment on that in here, or we can discuss that during a coffee break, or if you have time, you can also post a comment in a Slido later on. But the question is first, actually, what would you Northerners, Nordic countries, suggest as a start for building up a culture of trust in a post-Soviet society 100 years later than you? So what would you recommend? And actually, it's a completely different question that follows, which might interest people who are in practice and working day to day in built environment. With built environment, is there a person who is responsible to include these principles of universal design, principles of age-friendly communities, or let's say accessibility in cities? Are there any professional background for this specialist? So is there someone who is really reviewing the project that's going on and is able to demand that or to require that these principles should be integrated into interventions? So two questions like in air. So maybe you would like to reflect on the Northerners part and those who are aware of cities. So shoot an answer. So anyone would like, what would you recommend as Northerners? 100 years ahead with this kind of culture, where to start? Yeah, Luis, go ahead.
That is a huge question, and I will not even try to do honor to a comprehensive answer, but I think that this part with building trust in society is a key factor, and we also do see that in some areas in the Nordic countries. It's not, so what comes to mind is building on this inclusion agenda is that at times we have to be supported in learning how to be a society again, that we can create together, that we can have voices that matter in building up something that is meaningful for us, be it a community, activities, places to be and meet. So I would imagine that it would be many steps towards building that also muscle in being included, using your voice and the trust in that it matters and that it will be listened to, which sounds fluffy but really is quite concrete, specific processes of co-creation, of inclusion. That might be one part of it. And as I said again, we also have issues with not also, but it just reminds me of some areas we have where people don't participate really in building their local areas because they don't see themselves as part of the society. They don't use the health system in the same way. So it definitely is something that we need to also learn. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's what I've thought of at least.
It sure does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I agree with Louise, but I also think that we should also be aware that the regional differences that we have can also be like a positive thing, right? So in Norway, there's a living culture about this, like going out to the woods or going out for a walk in that like nature environment, for instance. But maybe there are other cultural or other practices that are more domestic to here that you can build on and expand upon. So I think this, like taking also the cultural aspects of the local place into consideration when building these kind of practices is very important. So maybe there's other points of entry, it could be food or other ways that other places where we start the conversation to build this sense of trust and citizenship. Family, for instance, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Christian, any final words would you like to add? Or do you know, is there any particular person in Norwegian communities who is checking for universal design principles? Or it's part of, let's say, city architects' expertise, or how?
All municipalities in Norway has people responsible for universal design, but one problem is that they have many people. So people in the building office who is controlling new buildings, they have to take care of this, but that's only new buildings. And then the municipality has somebody who is coordinating everything internal in the municipality to make the municipality more universal design. And they are also cooperating close with the disability board, because all municipalities in Norway has to have a disability board, and they have to have a youth council, and they have to have a elderly people council. So this person is working close with the disability council, the old people council, and also the youth council. And but one problem is that the background is very diverse. Some people are engineers, some people are educated as architects, some are landscapsarchitects, some are educated like physiotherapy, ergotherapy. So it's quite diverse, so we don't have one education for them, so they are big diversity.
Okay, I think I need to wrap up. We have used a lot of your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating. Thank you for being open to these ideas and bring back them to your daily work. And those who are online, thank you too, and for those questions here. So there were so many topics that we did not cover. It's just impossible. But feel free to approach panelists during the coffee break, or you got their contacts, so you may definitely write an email to them and to ask for more information. So thank you for your time, and see you soon.